Progress Index in Costa Rica touristic areas. It's a milestone for the tourism sector, making possible to measure the efficiency and quality of economic growth to lever up social and environmental development of a community.
The Social Progress Index is the first comprehensive measurement of social performance, allowing us to measure whether a touristic community is progressing not only in economic terms but in social terms as well.
Today, we have the instrument to generate a roadmap of actions and social interventions that meet the needs of the community. It also strengthens the role of the tourist sector as a lever of regional national development, promoting inclusive economic growth.
Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, in 1934, the economist Simon Kutzler defined GDP as the essential parameter to measure the performance of nations, and that's what we've been using ever since. However, if we go back to 2007, 2008, 2009, during the latest great global recession, we realized that social movements are no longer accepting economic growth as the only parameter to measure development. And so Joseph Stiglitz and other Nobel Prize winners in economics have defined the need to use and develop new parameters to measure the growth of economies and sectors. And as Professor Wells pointed out, we needed a model to study change, to measure performance of organizations and countries in a different way. And that's when we started to innovate and think about ways of promoting development, not just in economic terms, but also in social and environmental terms. And as you know, Costa Rica has been a leader in sustainable environmental tourism for many years. And we have now added a tool which enables us to include social and environmental parameters, because we want to know what the state and situation of people is, and not just the efforts that are being made or the investments that are being made. And we wanted something that was relevant to the context, because as we heard, each context, each location will be different in all of its dimensions. And that's how we came up with the Social Progress Index, which is a model that includes three elements: basic human needs being covered, the foundations of welfare, and well-being, which are the instruments and the infrastructures that enable communities to improve their living standard, and the establishment of a context where each individual will have the opportunity of achieving their fullest potential. And we measure this with different parameters. And in Costa Rican tourism, we use 59 indicators, which make it extraordinarily robust and granular, which means that in every tourism community, we have 59 opportunities to innovate in the policies, to establish public-private partnerships, to develop different corporate social responsibility initiatives through which we can transform the lives of the people in those communities. And in that sense, the model has already been implemented in 10 of our most important tourist destinations. And as you can see here, we've done it on the coast, we've done it in the mountains, we've done it in the cities, adapting this model to the different contexts that we have, and turning it not just into a mathematically and statistically robust model, but also one that is tremendously relevant in terms of the transformation experienced by each community and each tourist destination. And these measurements, these parameters also enable us to identify key achievements, areas in which tourism has already had a positive impact on change in these communities, and where we can trace this directly back to tourism, because we've also applied the tool to the whole province where these clusters are located. And we find that in these areas, the tourist destinations are much more advanced than the average of their counties and their provinces in terms of their level of development. But of course, it's not all good news. We've also found that there are areas where we lag behind in those tourist destinations versus the rest. And so we're going to be able to target government investments and our social policies, as well as corporate social responsibility strategies in those areas, as well as, of course, public-private partnerships or private-private partnerships, which we can target directly at those areas. Mauricio?
De manera que ustedes verán que si hablamos del impacto.
And speaking about the impacts of this project, you can see that the Social Progress Index has clearly shown that tourist destinations in Costa Rica have benefited in terms of the development of their community, particularly their human capital, as well as their economic and natural resources. And this is a statistical analysis which matches the perception of inhabitants of these tourist destinations. Over 80% of households that we interviewed in this survey believe that tourism benefits their communities, and they connect tourism with employment, development, higher income, and more economic activity in their communities. And so starting this year, in 2017, Costa Rica will be the first country in the world which will measure social progress index in all its tourist destinations. Until now, we had measured it in the traditional way, looking at the impacts on economic growth, employment, and investment. But now, we will also be looking at social progress in each of the communities where tourism represents the main economic sector. And that will enable the national and local governments, companies, and non-profit organizations to target our initiatives so that we can achieve the greatest impact, sustainability, and social development in order to guarantee perfect alignment between the interests of the communities, tourist sector, and government policies. And of course, it will help us to strengthen in the future, but particularly in 2017, our progress in sustainable development goals set by the UN.